Hello, and thank you for joining me on our tour of Mount Vernon today. You and I will begin our journey in the Welcome Center. The house you see in this photo is a model of Mount Vernon in the Welcome Center. George Washington was our first president, and Mount Vernon was his home in Virginia. Many demonstrations take place at Mount Vernon, including the one you see here. Can you guess what they're doing? They're making chocolate in the same way it would have been made in the 1700s and 1800s when the Washingtons lived here. Imagine you're riding up on horseback visiting the Washingtons for the very first time. What a magnificent view it would have been of the house across the green grass. The house is not the only amazing thing at Mount Vernon. George Washington also built a greenhouse for his experimental crops. In the greenhouse, he would grow coffee, oranges, lemons, limes, palms, and aloe. Have you ever seen sheep like these before? You may think you have, but probably not. These are Hog Island sheep. They are very rare. There are less than 200 of them, and they only live at Mount Vernon. As you walk through the wooded areas around the house, you'll see this original vault in the woods. George Washington was buried here in 1799. His brother Lawrence and his wife Martha were also buried here. George Washington realized that the original vault was falling apart before his death, so in his will he specified that a new burial site was to be prepared and he was to be moved along with his family members. A little further down the path in the wooded area, you'll find where he and his family are currently entombed. You can tell where George Washington is buried by the presidential seal on the top of the tomb. Near the Washington family tomb is a slave burial area. It is uncertain exactly how many slaves are buried in the hill and woods surrounding the marker placed there by the Mount Vernon Ladies Society. Stand very quiet and look out across the hilly woods in this area when you visit. Moving back towards the house, you'll find the carriage house. How would you get from place to place if you were part of the Washington family? You would get there by coach. This coach would have taken the Washington family to many places such as Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. Were you wondering what's for supper? These are meats and fish drying in the smokehouse waiting to be eaten. You didn't think you were going to the grocery store, did you? When George Washington acquired the house from his brother Lawrence, it was 1.5 stories. He expanded it to 2.5 stories and extensively redecorated the interior. You may think the house is made of stone, but it's actually made of wood with plaster and paint on top carved out to make it look like stone. How would you like a view of the Potomac River from your front porch? This photograph was taken on a foggy day, but on most days you can sit on a rocking chair and enjoy a magnificent view of the rolling hills and the slowly turning Potomac. This is the kitchen. It's separated from the house by a walkway. Why would they have done that? They did that mainly because of fire and because of the smells and the smoke from the kitchen. They didn't want that in the main house. When you walk through the house, you'll notice there are no bathrooms. You might think it funny, but there was no indoor plumbing at Mount Vernon. To use the restroom, you would have to walk outside to a little building on the edge of the garden called a necessary. Each day, the gardeners would take the waste out of the necessary, and they would use it to fertilize the garden, like you see here. What else would you need to live day to day at Mount Vernon? You'd need shoes. There was no mall here in the 1700s and 1800s. You would have your shoes made by a cobbler right here at Mount Vernon. Once you finish your tour of the home and garden, you will get to visit the Museum and Education Center to find out more about George Washington and his family. Here you will find original artifacts from George Washington's time. You will even get to see treasures such as Martha Washington's wedding dress, her jewels, and her shoes that she wore on her wedding day. Have you ever wondered what a cannonball looked like? You'll get to touch this one at the museum and see what it really was like. Thank you for joining me on our tour of Mount Vernon. I hope you enjoyed your visit.